It's throwback night here on Premier Sim Racing. Welcome in to the Darlington Raceway here in South Carolina. Welcome in to Premier Sim Racing in the Outlap Motorsports Truck Series. Derrick Watson along with Ron Mons. Evan Posocco has the night off. Well, Ron, when you think throwback night, you think vintage NASCAR, you think of Darlington.
Oh, absolutely. The Lady in Black has so much history on this asphalt. It was the first asphalt track that NASCAR used, and it is a stunner of a racetrack. To this day, even throughout the history, it puts on some amazing racing. It's on one of the closest ever finishes in NASCAR history with Kurt Busch and Ricky Craven here many, many moons ago. But through the alterations and through the decades, Darlington continues to host some amazing racing. Looking forward to rounding off the first half of the season in style with a throwback flashback from the past race here tonight.
Yeah, and looking forward, by the way, some TBD still on the schedule. That'll get fixed for next week. I can tell you, Ron, we're going to go from one iconic track to another. Next week will be Talladega on March 25th. The rest of the schedule needed to wait for iRacing's Week 13 and Season 2 updates before they could have the schedule. I can tell you, I think Coda's on the schedule later this season and a couple more iconic tracks, so it'll be fun to see how this all works out. Speaking of working out, let's take a look at the driver points. Steve Baker, a multi-time winner this year and this season, is up ahead by only about 5 points over Mark Kalin. Ted Lowendick, Jacob Dunn, and Steve Loving round out your top five. Ron, and look at this. I mean, up and down the board. I know we're only a few races in, but these are some tight point battles.
Yeah, very, very close. It's been up and down season for some. Considering that we're getting close to that halfway mark, it is rather fascinating to see that field as packed in as they are. Only 5 points between your top two in the drivers' standings, and then only have to go 7 back to find P3. Really tight margins throughout this pack, so fascinating to see how things will go here at Darlington. This is going to be a true driver's test, so we'll see the creme de la creme appear here tonight.
Yeah, great points there to be had. And I want to thank everyone for hanging out and watching here along on Green Flag TV for the Premier Sim Racing Outlap Motorsports Truck Series. And with that, we also want to thank Outlap Motorsports. You know what, Outlap? Motorsports is more than just a hobby. It's therapy. They know the garage, the paddock, and the driver's seat are all safe spaces. That's why Outlap proudly supports men's mental health and encourages drivers to check in, both on the track and off the track with each other, because what happens off the track matters just as much as what happens on. So again, I want to thank Outlap Motorsports for their continued sponsorship and support of Premier Sim Racing. With that said, it is time to take a look at tonight's Profit Python starting grid. Qualifying is over, and the man who leads the points also leads the grid. Steve Baker in that Soul Pack number 2 truck is next to Robert Barney in number 26. The 4 of Reese Bogues in a different look tonight. He'll be next to the 11 of Jacob Malone. Jacob, one of the newest drivers to PSR. Mark Kalin, he's out there in that Lotus Dynamics truck in the 62 next to the 51 of Jeff Evans in one of those throwback machines. Brett Puncari in the 35s back in P7 and row 4 next to Dustin Bumgarner in the iconic black number 16. And here we are, row number 5. Thomas Sink in number 48. That Get Grinds machine is next to the 13 of Theodore Lowendick.
And then looking from there, we got Nicholas Schwartz starting this race in 11th. He will be alongside Jamie Graham to complete row number 6. Row 7 will be Colton Lane. He'll be alongside Brandon Walter. And then from there, row number 8 will be Mike Toomer Jr. next to Stacy Hunter, the 42 and the 71 truck. From there, we got Nick Breyer starting this race in 17th place. He'll be next to Evan Williams in 18th. And then rounding out your top 20 for tonight's starting grid will be Jim Westerfield alongside Zach Williams.
Coming back into P21, you'll find Alexis Vigeant, the Canadian who's new this season, next to the 14 of Matt Gagnon. Then you got Bradley Holly back in the 184 truck, and he's next to the 56 of Richard Regan Jr. Back in P25, there's no drivers who did not take a time, by the way. Elliot White is back there in the 10 truck. He's next to the 3 of Jacob Dunn. P27's Doyle Lawrence, part of Ride and Shotgun Motorsports in the 88 next to the 46 of Justin Rodden. P29, you'll find James Morgan. He is next to Brett Adams. That's a 12 and a 23 side-by-side. And then we'll round it out here quickly. A couple more trucks here. Ron?
Yeah, we got Nicholas Grodenda starting this race in 31st, next to Nicholas Acosta alongside in 32nd. Zachary Burnt will be alongside Nick Hunter for your row right behind them. Nice to see a Tropicana car out there. Tropicana truck with the 45 of Tyler Manning completing her 35 car starting grid here tonight. We've got some cool looking trucks out there on the racetrack, some nice throwbacks, including the Interstate Batteries one that I really enjoy.
There'll be a lot to look at tonight, but first we're going to look at and Think Profit Python for sponsoring our starting grid. You know, every second counts, both on the track and in the world of deal hunting. That's where Profit Python delivers. It's the ultimate Discord for deal hunters and side hustlers with lightning fast alerts on price drops, secret sales, and hidden jackpots. Before the rest of the world catches on, you can find out. Profit Python. Strike fast. Profit faster. Well, you know, Ron, we had last week off. The Premier Sim Racing took off last week for the week update so that everything could run properly. But 2 weeks ago, an iconic race at the Phoenix Raceway is where these trucks were. A great race. Look at some of the photos here provided by Mr.Hedge. You see some of the great 2, 3, 4 wide racing across these photos. You know, Mr.Hedge believes that sim racing is full of unforgettable moments. And that's where Mr.Hedge iRacing Photography can help you capture them all. From your fresh wins to those fresh deliveries to even those crashes like that, or the burnouts like that you'll never forget. Mr.Hedge turns virtual racing into memories worth sharing. They're clean, they're sharp, and they're made for sim racers. Visit mrhedge.co.uk to get your best moments in focus. So I think focus might be the word of the night, Ron. As we're coming around here about to take the green, you have to focus at Darlington or you're going to earn one of those iconic Darlington stripes.
Yeah, this is one of those racetracks where a small little lapse in judgment can end in catastrophe, either a smack against the fence or side-by-side racing going wrong. Each of these turns is different. Each of these banks are different. This is going to be a real tough test for these competitors here. We're about to bring the Thunder Racing under the lights in the Lady at Black. Darlington, one of the most historic tracks in the world of NASCAR, here to have a history-making night for some and maybe one to forget for others. Waiting for that green flag to fly with the pace car now down pit lane. We've got a retro look for some of these cars, and we're about to bring the green flag out. There it is. The drivers are on their way, and we're racing here at Darlington. Drivers already getting a little bit squirrely. Look at that number 26 truck with a real moment. Yeah, yellow flag out already. Was just going to say that some drivers farther in the back had even more of a rough run. That's a 12 slow.
That's James Morgan. It's Hobby Rossi Esports black and red truck. Slow on the back straight. We'll wait and see what may have happened to him or what he caused. But caution number 1 in the first opening seconds here. Watch towards the back through the middle of your screen. Oh, there's Stacey Hunter. Stays up. And that's where it all started. Stacey Hunter got a little loose, I think, in the corner. Matt Gagnon got involved. I guess I saw one of the Profit Python trucks involved. So very quickly, turns 1 and 2 has claimed his first victim. And Stacey Hunter has your first Darlington stripe.
Yeah, and those stripes going to get collected like Pokemon cards as we head our way throughout the night. Taking a look at more of the racers.
Oh,
that was
no,
a 71 with a pretty big impact into the wall. There you can see them all stacking up. So we saw that 12 was initially the one that was slow, but everybody really got a piece of that. Pretty much from outside the top 10 all the way down back. That's the trouble with things here at Darlington. The track's kind of just 1.5 lanes wide, so when something does go down, you're going to see kind of like a plate racing style big one at Darlington.
Yep. And I think that's one of the hardest things to try to explain to someone who maybe has never raced this track before, right? Is that these corners are not that wide. I like that point you made, Ron, because it's probably the most difficult part, in my opinion, of this racetrack is watch from Jacob Dunn here. But watch one of these corners. Watch this. I mean, Jacob Dunn's up top, basically almost maybe a lane off the wall. But, ooh, buddy, that's some avoidance. But if you want to be side by side at Darlington, one truck has to be kissing the wall and one truck has to be kissing the white line, or there's not going to be enough space.
Yeah, to get a move done at Darlington, you pretty much just have to know how to dance with the devil. You've got to know how to go side by side while not being very comfortable at the same time. These racers, no matter what position they find themselves in, will always be on the limit. Side by side racing is certainly going to be a test of these drivers' patience and their skill throughout the night. But the clock is already rolling. A reminder, folks, 75-minute long timed races here in this series. So with this time ticking down, these competitors going to feel maybe a bit more frantic out there on the racetrack.
Yeah, these cautions eat away that time, and so it's both, I guess, a benefit and a hindrance depending upon where you are in the field. Your top 5, your top 6, pardon me, did not move around. That was Baker, Barney, Malone, Bogue, Evans, Kalen, all stayed the same for the most part. Some drivers maybe got a spot here or there, but it's going to be almost identically the same restart here, Ron. And well, I guess we'll wait and see if this one goes better, if people have figured out this racetrack in the first turn.
As one car that I do not want to see get damage is at number 11 of Jacob Malone, just because it's got the SpongeBob branding on the front of it. If I see SpongeBob like cross-eyed because of some front-end damage, I'm gonna be very sad, just as sad as SpongeBob would be on the front of that race car. It's great out there. I saw the Interstate Batteries car a little bit farther in the back. It's funny, actually. There's one sign that I have here in my room that I've never put up. It's a giant, like 3 foot wide. Well, not that giant, but it's a big Interstate Batteries sign. I got gifted that when I was in middle school, and I still have yet to put it up, which I feel kind of bad about. I tried putting it up once, but it weighs about 1,000 tons. But let's get this race back up and rolling. Already about 4 minutes burned on the clock. We got about a turn in. Let's see if we can maybe go for 2, 3, 4, maybe even a couple of laps. Let's find out. Green flag is back out. We're racing once again here at Darlington. Fantastic jump from Baker. He's going to try and lead him off comfortably into 1 as Barney and Malone going to go side by side. Barney stuck on the bottom. He may be at risk of losing out on other spots of the 4 truck.
Yeah, so far so good. I see him about single file, about 7 deep, now getting a little bit longer. Back to Ted Lowendick before you see side by side back there for P9, P10. And that's race, well, it's going better than the first restart. That's easy to say. We're going to come around here and complete a lap. So we're a lap ahead of that first run here, Ron. And now we'll start to see how comfortable people are. I believe there are certain ovals on the track where you can kind of, I'll say, fake your competency of the track. There's tracks like Darlington. They will expose you if you're not good at this track.
Oh, as that's a 15. Not able to hide that big hit into the inside wall. No caution yet. He is below that apron, so I don't think iRacing will call it just because of that. That's a heartbreaker moment for that number 15 machine and driver. But that's a fantastic point that you bring up there, Derek, talking about this track. There's no real room to run or hide. If you're out there, you've got to bring the thunder. If you can't bring the thunder, you will be struck by lightning.
Yep, and struck the wall is what happened for Nick Byer there in the 15. It's got loose out of the corner, and maybe, I'm guessing, a little bit too much gas there, Ron, and ramped it up a little too soon. The truck came around, and away they went. Here now deeper in the field, you see a side-by-side battle here. That's Matt Gagnon up top. Matt is throwing back to one of his original paints that he won in back in league racing. So Matt's kind of pulling the old Willie Byron of throw back to his. That wasn't Gagnon. Who was that? I'm being told it's not Gagnon. Go ahead. That's the 14. That's the white and red. That's Matt Gagnon. Oh no. Now, getting bad info on my ears. Sorry about that. But Gagnon pulling the old Willie Byron. Ron sort of throwing back to himself.
Yeah, there's been a lot of drivers as of recent to do that in the Cup Series. Some of which has been done to a bit of a better effect, but I do like that car out there. The nice little red chrome, as seeing some drivers already get familiar with that wall. That was Kalen in the number 62 truck, currently running in 5th at the moment, who's right on board with him all through 3 and 4. Now he's got Reese Bogue right up in front, and then a cushion from there. Robert Barney and the rest of your top 3 have been able to not necessarily drive off into the sunset, but they're a little bit farther down the driveway than the postal truck dares to go down.
Yeah, and they're doing pretty well so far. We're riding on board, you said, with Mark Kalen. And Mark, this is sort of an iconic track for Mark, because Mark's, is a friendly nickname for himself of, Bubba the Wall Sponge. Mark's been known to scrub a wall or two at a racetrack, and I was thinking, if you're going to scrub a wall at a track, Darlington's probably the place for you. That's probably the place where you want to where you want to do it at. So we'll see how well he does here. But I was noticing, and of course, this is relative because you're basing on one truck. But watch Reese Bogue in a 4. Reese does not appear to be having a good time. Watch how much that truck is wobbling back and forth.
Yeah, it is wobbling like just like soft set pudding right now. Just every single time he comes out of the turn, the back end tries to snap around, then the front end tries to respond real tricky. As that's a 99 with a huge sideways moment. Contact as they headed their way all through 3 and 4. That's going to cost them some time.
Yeah, it was Brandon Walter in the 99, but it was the 10 of Elliott White in that purple Sulpec truck that maybe helped make that contact. But all is good. They stay racing here. We'll stay pointed forward. Coming back to this battle here, and it's interesting as we talked about how unstable Reese Bogue is. Bogue mic'd up on the driver radio, Ron, and said he felt as though it was because of the air that Cannon was putting on the back end of his truck that was causing to unsettle. I'm not sure if I buy into that theory, but that's what Reese Bogue is blaming it on. They're now side by side, and that looked ugly for a second. Jeff Evans is not in a good spot here in that 51.
Yeah, see, air is a fantastic thing for a racing driver to blame because the air cannot speak for itself and you can't see it unless you're Dale Earnhardt. Look at side-by-side racing off down the backstretch into 3 and 4. The 4 in the midst of a hornet's nest. Got a move put on him by Kalen, and now Evans is looking to pounce as well, smelling a little bit of blood in the water. If the 4 can't get things back up and rolling in the right direction, this is going to be tricky. The 51 still on the inside of him, drifting up. They touch and make contact through the turn. That's just going to cause things to get even worse for that 4 truck. You can see another sideways wiggle. It's coming at a 2. That seems to be the real choke point for Bogue.
Yeah, having a very hard time. So we're now ride here on the 51 of Jeff Evans. Jeff, one of our throwback paints. This is the Ricky Craven DuPont paint is what I was told. So when you think DuPont paints in NASCAR, Ron, I think you automatically want to go, to Jeff Gordon. But this is a Ricky Craven DuPont throwback. So that's what Jeff is running tonight on that truck.
Yeah, I like the throwback idea a lot. I especially like when it's obscure throwbacks. I say this as somebody who knows way too much about obscure racing history. It's a problem. It's been a problem for many, many moons. I can tell you that with confidence. But yeah, nice to see a off-the-wall DuPont throwback scheme out there on track, and even better to see it running strong currently. P5 with only 3.2 seconds between himself and the race leader, Steve Baker, who, despite the fact that things have spread out a little bit farther behind, has not been the case for your top 3. They're only split by 6.5 tenths of a second. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop in this battle for the race lead, whether that'll be Baker getting a move put on him by either Jacob Malone or Robert Barney, or whether Malone and Barney are going to start to battle themselves. Malone in a real tricky spot right now, pretty much the meat in the sandwich. I don't think he wants many bites taken out of himself.
I think that's probably fair to say. Speaking of throwbacks, your leader, Steve Baker, is Jamie McMurray Haviline paint scheme tonight. So Jamie McMurray, known to have some success across NASCAR, of course now a NASCAR commentator or studio analyst. So that's the paint scheme that we got going on for the 2 is that Jamie McMurray. And of course, there's another one that sort of kind of quasi ties Jamie McMurray in the field. I saw it a moment ago on Nicholas Schwartz in the Coors Light machine. I sort of recall Jamie having a brief ride in that ride in real life. So a couple cool ties to Jamie McMurray in this race tonight.
Yeah, I believe the story goes, it was all the way back in 2002, right towards the end of the season. Sterling Marlin had suffered a neck injury in a crash. I'm trying to remember exactly where it was. It may have been Chicagoland where he suffered the accident and picked up that injury. And then Jamie hopped in the car in only his second race of the fall Charlotte race, I believe it was. He was able to grab his first NASCAR win. That was many, many moons between then and his next win when he was at Roush. But still,
that's interesting. Because the Mandela effect tells me, and I'm going to Google this in a second, the Mandela effect tells me that his win was the 600 Charlotte race. Am I wrong in that thought? Let me ask, you talk and I'll ask Google.
See, that's what I always usually do. I just say something to make myself seem smart, and if it is incorrect, I'll just blame the fact that I can't even remember what I had for dinner last night. I think it may have been the fall race, although memories can certainly evade me. I can also use the excuse to say in 2002 that I wasn't even live by then, so I can use that as an excuse.
Okay, well, now I'm old. That's disgusting. You are correct, by the way. For first Cup win came in October 2002 at Charlotte. It was fall race, so good job on that. Speaking of unique things, look, watch this here, Ron. This is something we get unique in PSR. This is Bradley Holly with sort of his onboard camera. Brad straps a webcam to the top of his headset. There's no face cam tonight, apparently, for Brad, so we're only going to get this view tonight, but this is what Brad sees. So this is the monitors, and if Brad looks up in a second, you'll see he has 2 monitors up top. Put your head up, Brad. He can't hear me, but I'm going to pretend he does. There will be a telemetry on the top left and a track map on the top right, but that is a great view of what exactly Brad sees in his simulator.
Yeah, that is a very cool look. I've never gotten that before, but here we go. Jacob Malone just got a movement on Steve Baker for the race lead. That came rather quick. I was wondering what was going to happen there. Who would be the first to try and pounce? Well, it turns out it's Malone and now Baker than me in the sandwich. He's going to have to worry about both getting a move done to jump his way back up into the race lead if he feels like he can do it, or getting a move put on him by Robert Barney as hearing that driver was slow out there on the racetrack. What was that from production?
Justin Rodden, I think, can be slow. We'll wait and find out why in just a moment here, but it's something, and I want to come back to this point we made very early in the race and emphasize it again. As you watch these drivers go through the corners here, we'll watch Justin Rodden first in the main part of your screen. He just, I think Jacob Dunn and James Morgan teammates got a little squirrely. I think it kind of scared the crap out of Rodden, and he just sort of backed out of it. But the point I wanted to make here, and we see it again, we're watching these trucks go side by side. Here's the 48 and the 4. Is just how narrow the banking of this track is. You see a lot of drivers, even solo around here, Ron, who they have a hard time gauging where they are. In a single corner, they'll come down and hit that white line. They'll be up in the wall and back down. It's just so hard here to get yourself together.
You know, what's funny about the banks here at Darlington is they weren't even added in there as like a racing line. It was added in initially as a safety initiative. It was thought that the higher banking towards the wall would slow the cars down in case they had any sort of stuck throttle or a brake failure or something of the sorts. And then everybody just decided, you know what, I think it's better if I just rip it on the wall and go as quick as I can all through the turns. And that's why this racetrack is kind of that bowl shape that it has developed as time has come along. Of course, many repaves since then. The track about as patchy as my face when I was 14, but the point still remains that this track has that old school flair and old school character, even in the area around it, as we see a move put on Nicholas Schwartz. That's Brandon Holly again, the move done in the other 184 truck. Simple move there, the silver bullet sinking down.
Well, you know, and of course, there's lots of stories about Darlington that exist. Obviously, the one that we know is true is that the corners are different because of the pond, right? They didn't want to change they didn't want to move the pond, so that's why the one corner is shorter than the other. As we're riding on board here with Mark Kalin and watching him have a good run, and you know, I always tell people, Ron, if you want to know how a driver's doing tonight, watch the hands. The hands will tell the story of a race car, and watch Mark's hands here on his webcam on the bottom right of your screen. I'm impressed, and I mean that sincerely by Mark. I don't see a whole lot of, there's a little bit of slide, but there's not a whole lot of fighting here. Typically, when you see a driver who's having a bad night, it looks like they're kind of like, you know, arm wrestling a gorilla almost. So Mark here is going to make the pass on Robert Barney and get down to that white line and come back up. But overall, some pretty calm hands for Mark Kalin. You ever arm wrestle a gorilla?
I have not. You know, that's just me, though. I've not lived that experience, but there are many things that I have not experienced in life.
All right, fair enough. I was going to say some other stories that exist about Darlington that, you know, you hear that maybe you have or haven't seen proof of. Of course, you talked about the banking being a safety initiative. It was believed at first, and there's stories that go around that say that when Darlington first got raced on, Ron, that they didn't think about racing up on the banking. The banking was sort of a runoff for wrecks and for drivers to come on up. Speaking of arm wrestling a gorilla, Jesus, Pete, look at that. That is a much different view than what we saw from Mark Kalin.
I like the bottle of Castrol GTX
Castrol
right
GTX
there.
sponsorship, yeah.
Yeah, I would hope that's not his beverage of choice when he's in the sim ring. That I'm not sure how that would go down.
It would explain the shaky hands.
Yeah, that could potentially do it. If I drank a bottle of Castrol GTX, I'd probably be shaking like a leaf as well. But he's got a handful at the moment. Nice to see a like a Formula car style steering wheel as he tries to wheel this NASCAR truck around Darlington. You can see a bit of a wiggle, having a chicken's lift out of the throttle. Stressful moments for him as he is still battling with Bumgartner for P14 out there on the racetrack. Fun little fact from my own driving days. Back in like 2014 or 2013, it was very, very early on, right as I was first starting to get into the kart. We were sending out, letters to pretty much any company who would give us the time of day to see whether or not they could sponsor me. I nearly ended up getting sponsored by Castrol GTX, and they nearly asked me to try and appear on a television ad because they asked me whether or not I would be good on TV. To which I said, no, probably not. Well, my dad said it, but they said, no, probably not. He has a speech impairment. And, fast forward, 13 years later, here we are.
Yeah, here we are doing iRacing commentary. So I think you've worked out okay. You've done okay for yourself, I'd say. Maybe you missed out on that chance, but doing all right. There's the one truck of Jamie Graham, by the way. That's a nice throwback with that sort of powder blue look and right in front of the Valvoline. Now, the Valvoline truck, though, that's not really a throwback per se. That I believe to be Colton Lane, who he runs that truck on a pretty regular basis. Ron, although it does look like a throwback, it's kind of just his common paint scheme.
Yeah, so we can call it a throwback in an odd way. It's a half throwback. It's fascinating though. We've got Mark Martin Valvoline throwback as a paint scheme from 1993. He also ran the number 60 in what used to be called the Busch Series. What's now I nearly said Nationwide. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Yeah. Now O'Reilly, used to be Xfinity, also used to be Nationwide, was Busch at the time. When Mark Martin ran the Busch Series in the Winn-Dixie car for Roush, he used to run the number 60, if my memory serves me correctly. So kind of a merger of two Mark Martin throwbacks from the 90s there.
Yep, and definitely a cool throwback for Colton Lane and something that's appreciated. And again, many throwbacks you'll notice on the track throughout the night. And we'll keep pointing them out here. So a good run now is on the move here. Knock on wood, Ron. We're now a good run in. We're 56 minutes to go. So we're about 20 minutes off the clock. We have a good number of laps now on these tires. And Elliott White here is trying to make the pass. This will put him in the top 10 if he can get up here around Jamie Graham. Elliott has really stormed onto the scene here this season in PSR. He, a longtime Solpec Precision Racing member, joined the league back in the winter series when they were doing some fun races just to kind of, have something to do in the winter, and has really just had an amazing start to the 2026 campaign for PSR and having a good run now up in the top 10 here. So I'll finish that thought I said earlier, Ron, and we'll move on. This banking up here, there's always old driver stories that no one raced up here, right? You race down in the bottom of the corners below the white line. Now, I'll tell you, I've never seen footage of this theory, but you'll hear drivers like Darrell Waltrip talk about it. That must have been a much different race, not racing up on the banking.
Yeah, it had to have been quite tricky, and I'm sure just cutting down and keeping that momentum rolling had to have been so tricky just to keep the car pointed in the right direction. That's already a tough ask on the high banks, but with no banking to help you out, that's got to be real tricky. Yep. To invoke a little road course comparison, talking about the Zandvoort circuit and the reconfiguration that was done there. If you head your way off through turn number 3 and try and run on the bottom of that track, it'll basically feel like you're driving on ice. So running on the bottom here, that's got to be a very tough order for these competitors to try and keep it going in a straight line. But breaking away from the history talk, although that will probably flare up once again between now and the end of the show, we got a battle that may start to heat up here with Thomas Sink and Ted Lowendick, as well as Colton Lane and Reese Bogue that are going side by side right behind. Look at that hornet's nest as they head their way down the backstretch. 5 cars covered by just about nothing. 2x2 pack as Elliott White and Jamie Graham are now starting to get involved in the battle too.
Oh boy, this looks just a little sketchy, doesn't it? Not that they're doing anything wrong, but just this kind of racing at Darlington kind of makes that driver sense tingle, doesn't it? It sort of makes you kind of up on the edge of your seat, up on the edge of your wheel, just kind of nervous. And they've got it worked out, so all seems to be good for them. There's Bradley Holly, by the way. Brad's in his own throwback. This one I didn't know, Ron. I'll put you to the test here. I was told it's the Sweetheart / Solo Cups jazz pattern. I don't recognize it.
See, I look at this car, and although I don't think I have drank out of something like I may have done at a laser tag place right outside the city of Philadelphia about 14-ish years ago, something around that, for one of my elementary school buddies' birthday parties. I remember there was a car, it was actually, we got some side-by-side racing here up in the front. Steve Barker and Mark Kalin, they were battling there for P2, and Baker was able to get that spot. So muscling through this lap traffic and trying to muscle past each other as well. Now, getting back to the cup discussion, I saw a very similar pattern to that at a pizza place not too far away from Pocono Raceway, but I have never seen an actual cup with that exact pattern, although I do recognize it quite a lot, and it is iconic. Miami Vice sort of deal.
Miami Vice. I was listening in the right version of Reese Bogue, upset at the moment, thinks he's getting bullied a little bit more than he feels is appropriate. So I can hear, I think that's, yeah, it is Reese Bogue. He is upset right now. So I know that's not what's on our screen, but that's what distracted me from your Miami Vice story, was just hearing Reese Bogue upset animated. It's not something you typically hear across the radio here. And this is that battle right here. Reese thinks that Elliott White is, I guess, bullying him might be the right way to say. I can't say what Reese said, but I would be in trouble. But yeah, that's the gist of it.
See, I'm not sure what bullying is going on here. Oh yeah, there it is. That wonderful.
Okay.
If you drink some cold water out of that will, hit about as hard as a train.
So I say that's like a +2 to cold in those cups, I think.
Yeah, that's exactly what the deal is there. If I drank like a Sprite out of that, I think all my childhood trauma would be healed. Ford truck mega sideways heading out of turn number 2. I don't know where the bullying is going on, whether or not the 4 is getting bullied by his competition or whether his car is bullying him.
Yeah, I'm
going to say it's a bit of both.
I think it's more than that. I think he's just having a tough night. And when you're having a tough night as a driver, it gets to your head, right? Those gremlins start to fester, you get frustrated, now everything is at fault, right? It's sort of the opposite of a placebo effect. It eats at you, you get mad, you're trying to find a reason. And listen, a lot of times what we think is happening inside the truck or inside the car, got the helmet on, you're strapped in, you're inside your sim, whatever you may be, a lot of times what you think is happening isn't real. It's just that perception you have, right? And then you go back and watch the replay later and you're like, yeah, okay, maybe that's not what's happening. So I wonder for Reese later when he watches the replay back if he'll realize that he's just having a tough night, and I feel for him. This is a tough track, but this is what I think he's referring to when he got upset in voice chat. This will be Elliott White on the bottom in the purple and black. Now let's watch this. And there's Reese. Now they're going to be 3 wide, and I would be. I'm not sure I'd be upset with the drivers, but I'd be scared if we were 3 wide at Darlington. But now it's going to back off here. Now watch Elliott White in the bottom. What happens here? Anything? Nothing. But
I think it was
maybe a little bit, but not enough to be that animated. But listen, if I was 3 wide at Darlington, I'd be upset.
I think it was him and the 1 that were making a bit of contact as they headed their way down the front stretch that he may have been referring to. It was repeated contact, small little tap there, small little tap there. As that's a 51 mega sideways. That's going to cost him a desperate amount of time. The 51 that we're seeing in the thick of some battles, now dropping down outside the top 5. That was Ted Lowendick that was able to get the move done on him. The 13 machine. That's the Interstate Batteries car. Again, the move put on the 51. But no, I think that may have been what he was referring to, the 1 and the 4 coming to blows as often as they did. It was light, minor contact, but contact nonetheless. When you end up against the fence and you're already having a tough night and somebody puts you 4 wide, it's the equivalent of stubbing your toe after you come back from a bad day at work. So we see the 56 mega slow out there on the racetrack up against the fence as he added his way off through 3 and 4. And things going from bad to worse is now the 4 and the 184 now starting to squabble up.
Now the wall is bullying the 4 truck there. Well, I will say, I think it's important to note here, Ron, we are now, I believe, 47 laps into this stint on these tires. And we had that small caution. There's Reese pulling down, by the way. He's going to come down pit road. I was just about to talk about this. 47 laps at Darlington is forever on a set of tires. That is a long run. Darlington shreds tires. It eats tires for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and 4th meal. So for Reese right now, listen, you're having a bad night. Come get some new tires, refresh for a second, maybe it'll go better. Now the fear for Reese Bogue is that the caution doesn't come out until the pit cycle is complete.
You know, I think caution or not, I think the 4 will be happy just to have some new tires on that car and maybe getting some adjustments done to it too. That car looked evil. I can't even say it looked like a declawed cat trying to climb up an igloo. It just looked like, you know, like a hairless cat inside of a bathtub full of coconut oil. It was all over the place, had no traction at all, sideways slides out of every single turn, and even through the turns for that matter. I am shocked he was able to keep that thing going in a straight line, but he's now come into the pits, is now out of pit lane, and seeing some more drivers shuffle in. That right there was a 10 of Elliott White, now breaking away from this field and coming into the pits.
By the way, now we see the Alfred Hitchcock style webcam for Jamie Graham here, the very underlit dark room at Jamie Graham with the old Birds movie for Alfred Hitchcock.
Cave.
Yeah, like it really is, isn't it? But Jamie is a well-respected and well-rounded driver across PSR, currently running in just on the outside of the top 10, being chased down by Brett Pancari here. And I do want to thank Jamie and the rest of the drivers for providing those webcams, by the way. It's a really great, awesome thing for the broadcast and for us as commentators to sort of have that to lean on and talk about and give a little bit more insight than the average broadcast. But so I don't have the knowledge in advance on this run. I know that one is painted like a throwback because that's not Jamie's typical paint. Do you recognize the throwback?
With the one, I would say that it is a very old Petty throwback based off the text and all that, but I'm not going to say it's a Richard Petty throwback. I'm going to say it's a Lee
Ross
Petty.
Chastain vibes for some reason, and I don't know what throwback it is. I know Ross may not be a quote unquote throwback. What it says, Martin on the side. That's obviously a sponsor. So yeah, it does have the Petty blue, but I somehow am getting like Ross Chastain vibes off of the one right now.
I kind of am as well. One thing that I do like is that we've seen some more kind of like retro style paint schemes out there. Even the non-throwback ones, we're starting to see some more like retro-ish cars come to form. As look at Brett nearly ended up making contact with them as they headed their way out of turn number 4, 35 and the 1, side by side, squabbling in through 1 and 2. They can't battle too hard though, because look at Richard Reagan Jr. He's got to look to try and close up and get involved in this fight. And right as I say that, he's now going to stick his nose into it side by side with himself and Pancari, and that will be the spot. Reagan Jr. jumping his way up into 9th as Jamie Graham in that one car, Chastain or Petty throwback, whatever it may be, he's looking to drive away from those two as they start to battle.
So the other battle is going to start to happen in a very separate way, Ron, is the pit stop battle, because anyone who's pitted right now or before now, so let's run through those names. That'd be Justin Rodden, Elliott White, Colton Lane, Reese Bogue, Jeff Evans. This is a 2-stop race if you've pitted as of now. There's no way you're going to go another 45 minutes on the clock on this next set of tires you're getting off of pit road. I'm wondering if some of these drivers like a Jacob Malone, like a Steve Baker or Mark Kalin, I wonder who's going to try and push this limit. Can anyone possibly split this in half? With the way Darlington eats tires, I would be surprised. But, you know, to use one of your favorite quotes, stranger things have happened.
Yeah, I've seen Stranger Things. I don't even have a Netflix account. That's, you know, it would be fascinating to see somebody make it very, very long on a stint of tires, but it would be not surprising to see them in the fence trying to make that strategy call work. Now, I would love to see how some of those racers are handling right now, whether or not they're really starting to struggle. As here we go. Oh, 62 spinning. That's Mark Kalin. He avoids the barrier. How did he keep it out of the fence? Certainly the tires are angry, but thankfully he's coming down pit lane, so that won't matter too much anyways. Although if he does come back down pit lane in a couple of laps on, those tires will probably become sentient and have a very strong word with them. Lots of drivers coming down pit lane at the moment, including Lone Dick, Sink, and Reagan Jr.
Guys, a couple things to note here. First off, let's talk about how tricky pit road is. We'll talk about that. But I also noticed Jacob Dunn had a black flag for required repairs. I think, from what I could tell from the replays and watching the track, I think he just popped the tire. I don't know if I Oh, okay. Maybe we're being told he hit something. We'll have to wait and see here. But wait and see what happened to Jacob Dunn.
Oh,
there it is.
no!
Okay.
Oh, it's the black hole sand barrels. They strike again.
And that's what ties my two stories together. This, Ron, is possibly, in my opinion, for some reason, the most difficult pit road entry in any oval we have in the NASCAR schedule. And I think the biggest reason for that, honestly, Ron, and you can have an opinion too, is that it turns so much on the entry. You keep turning left, and you keep turning, and when you think you're done turning left, you turn left just a little more to get on pit road here. That pit road entry seems to be like an endless left hand. It's like the opposite of one of those freeway off ramps. It just keeps turning left.
Yeah, I was gonna say, trying to find exactly where the pit entry is like trying to find a diamond in a pile of broken glass. We can see the 11 get flirtatious with that pit attenuator once again.
Holly.
You can see just from these small little shots that we have of the drivers coming down pit lane, including Bradley Holly, you can't even see the racing surface. It is so far down in from where they usually run. And now a little bit of history about this racetrack. They swapped where the start-finish straightaway was. That backstretch, you can see that odd inside wall. That's where pit lane used to be. Now it's there. The pit entry heading off through 3 and 4, the apron is just so unbelievably massive that you just can't spot it unless you know where it is. I mean, even heading off through turn number 1, the old pit entry, that's really tricky to nail down. But when these racers head their way on the racing surface, off through the turn, contact made with a 1. He got checked up with Toomer, trying to drop the anchors to slow down to come into pit lane. The 1 up against the fence, probably some suspension damage. That looked like an awkward hit. Yeah, meatball flag for the 1. That was too big of contact for him to survive. Wow. I think the suspension is killed.
Jamie Graham upset on the radio about what happened here. Mike Toomer was, by the way, the last car, I believe, to come down pit road. And Jamie Graham upset, says Toomer should not have turned down. So we're going to wait and see the replay again to maybe form an opinion here. But I don't know. So if pit stops are done for this first set here, everyone's going to have to pit again, Ron. So no one is done pitting. But it's going to be a long... Mike Toomer's going to have some damage to fix. Look at that timer going up. That's way longer than the pit stop. So Toomer has some damage to fix. And I think you're right. Jamie Graham may be done for the evening. Watch this again here, Ron. Tell us what you think happens.
Yeah, and Rez, we were talking about the pit lane. I think that was a 42 trying to drop the anchors to slow down and make that turn to come down pit lane. I think that was done a little bit early. I think he should have probably stated his intentions well earlier than he did. Not sure whether there was a radio call that he did over voice chat or something in the chat. You can see he's already very slow, struggling, just trying to find his way down. What that is to invoke a little bit more freeway discussion. That's like trying to let the traffic go by so you can get into the lane to exit as we're under yellow.
We'll come back to that talk in a second because I sort of have a different opinion. I'm James Morgan for the second time tonight, slow on the track. I actually think that contact is 100% on Jamie Graham, to be honest with you. We'll come back to that after we see what happened to the caution and what put us here under caution just after the pit cycle. Luckily, no one is stuck out because of it. Here's James Morgan on the track in front of that purple Prophet Python. Morgan has got a boop, a small bump, and around he goes, and right in front of his teammate Nicholas Acosta. And now to put out caution number 2. Listen, I'm of the opinion, Ron, that, I mean, short of Toomer like sitting still on the track, if that truck is moving on the track and he's up top, he's out of the way, and you run him over because you're on newer tires, I don't know how you get away from that fault. With all due respect to Jamie, I don't think it was intentional. I don't think it was on purpose, but. I don't know. That to me, that's on Jamie Graham.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to raise. Certainly, there was room to move for the driver that was slowing, correct, but there was certainly a lot of room to move for the driver that was catching up. Now, it's obviously split-second decisions out there on the racetrack. It takes a little bit for them to register exactly what was going on right in front, but I think it was certainly an avoidable incident for both parties involved. Both of them could have done something a little bit different to prevent that from happening, but it did. And certainly for the one truck, it's going to be a bitter way for the night to go. I don't think his race is entirely over because he's down in pit lane trying to repair that car. But in terms of contending for a good spot here in this race, his chances are effectively killed, as we do have some drivers coming down pit lane. You can see that's the number 60 truck up on the pit box right now. That's Colin Lane. Nice to see that Mark Martin car up close with is that like a throwback Reese's logo on the back of that car? I think that is.
Yeah, I think so as well. So, well, pit stop's happening for some drivers. I was trying to get a count here on where I think we are. It's going to be about P15 on back. Came down pit road here, so we'll see what difference that has on these trucks as the night goes on. Well, ladies and gentlemen, it is almost time for a brand new season of FTR. That's right. The FTR Alameda Racing Academy Endurance Series returns this Saturday, March 21st, with multi-class racing action. The 6-race endurance schedule will visit iconic tracks such as Spa, Road America, Interlagos, and more. The best news, though, there is still time for you and your teammates to enter into this series. Scan the QR code on your screen and join the FTR Discord today for more information. Ron, that's a great schedule of 4 and 6 hour races. GT3s, GT4s guaranteed, possibly some GR86s and some TCRs mixed in there. That is going to be a blast to cover here on Green Flag TV.
Yeah, that's going to be a hoot. Usually when it comes to endurance racing, you don't see like non-prototypes. It's usually, like a couple of prototype classes, either the GTPs or the LMDHs, whatever you want to call them, and then usually an LMP2, maybe a P3 if you're lucky, and then the GT3s. Nice to see kind of an all GT car endurance series. That'll be real fascinating to see here on the channel. Bahrain as well, part of that schedule. Won't see that on the F1 calendar, I believe, this year, but we will probably see it here in this series. It's coming to iRacing very, very soon. I think it's part of iRacing Arcade as well, so already seeing a small little glimpse of that racetrack. We'll have to see it in the sim here in the not too distant future. But in the not too distant future here in this race, in a couple of moments time, we have the green flag coming out. Only the second restart of the night. Let's see how these racers manage it. Elliott White guns it early. We're back to racing once again here at Darlington. White off to a flyer. Kalen and Evans side by side for second, though. Look at the field stacking up and trying to find any way in the book to get past each other as it's formation flying out of 2.
Yeah, in fact, you see Ted Lowendick is side by side, and some great racing happening down the back straight here, just off the restart. A mix of new tires and old tires, and I guess your oldest tires now, Ron, about 10 laps old. And it doesn't sound like a lot right now, but if this thing stays green, it will definitely matter. I think the longest tires we're being told now is Elliott White, your leader. 17 laps ago he pitted. So right now, Ron, I don't think that matters a lot, but I think it matters more and more if this race stays green.
Oh, as you can see, Kalen get into the fence as he headed his way out of the turn. A lot of drivers bouncing off the wall coming out of 2. But Elliott White, I think that tire disadvantage that he has isn't potent for now, but he may start to feel the struggle soon as Kalen trying to find any way in the book to get past him as they're side by side down the front stretch into 1 and book it. Kalen through, jumping up into the race lead, and now we got to keep an eye on that 10 to see whether he's going to drop down like an anvil push out of a helicopter. Yeah,
by the way, I want to give an update. Thanks to the YouTube chat, was told that throwback we were debating for Jamie Graham. Apparently, you were correct. It ties back to Richard Petty's first Daytona 500 paint is where that was inspired by. So I want to thank the YouTube chat for that. Also, the YouTube chat had a comment about Jamie racing in the dark, and I want to say that's not uncommon in sim racing. I don't know how you feel, Rob, you do your racing, but I actually enjoy racing in the dark.
See, here's my perspective on it, having now experienced thoroughly both sides of the broadcasting sphere. As a commentator, I love talking about racing in the dark. It is always so cool. Producing, on the other hand, my graphics card has seen better days. I will tell you that with the utmost confidence. So shout out to Dustin in the production truck. I'm sure his computers are whirring. If it were my PC, it probably would have blown up a long time ago. I would have gotten a blue screen, and chances are it probably, the fans would have been blurring so quickly that it probably would have started to take flight. As you can see, drivers, contact as they had their way down the back straight over there, wrecking big. That's Rodin involved in that.
Yep, that's Matt Gagnon involved, Justin Rodden both involved. It's down below the racing line, and this is the tricky part of Darlington because all that space down there for the white line is not the racing surface. iRacing will not put cautions out for that. So watch what's higher off the corner. There's Matt Gagnon behind in the 14. There's Justin Rodden, that multicolored black with the yellow and the pink, and Rodden got loose all on his own, actually. And Matt Gagnon just kind of barely got contact and was a victim in that wreck, but there we are. We're going to stay green here up front. It's Robert Barney and Steve Baker. These guys are racing for 4th and 5th on the track here. It's now Kalen, White, Malone, Barney, and Baker. The biggest fallback so far on this restart, by the way. Watch this again one more time. I was going to react to the 171. Never mind. Yeah, I thought it was loose on his own, but it's the 171 that gets to him. But the biggest fallback on this restart run is Jeff Evans, all the way back to P8. Remember, he started front row, and Jeff right there is back to P8. He is the second oldest tires on the track.
Yeah, so the second oldest tires, but Elliott White, who's got older tires, has been able to hold on to P2. Mark Halen, who was, bringing the heat on that restart, able to keep it going there. Now the 51 really struggling there. He's going to be pinched up on the outside with the 13 of Ted Lowendick pretty much completely ripping against the fence as he headed his way off through turns number 1 and 2. You could just see a shower of sparks as these racers were running off into it. That 51, he's got that tire disadvantage, sure, but clearly something is awry in that race car. It's pretty much driving around like the wheels are bolted on sideways, although I may have spoken too soon. Elliott White has just lost 2 spots in my little blibber blabber. He went from 2nd now down to 4th. That looked a bit unnatural based off the gaps. I think something had to have gone down, maybe a sideways wiggle out of turn number 4 for Elliott to cause him to lose out on that much speed.
By the way, of note, I want to point out here, we were following that Jeff Evans truck a moment ago. That truck to the inside, that 56 truck, that's the returning Richard Regan Jr. Richard's been away, got a new job that required him to move. It's been away from the sim, been away from racing for about a month now. I don't think Richard's raced since the preseason race at Daytona for PSR. And I got a chance to talk to Richard and his teammates down at Regenboog Motorsports pre-race, and we were kind of joking, Richard's back, there's the race when he's a guys, I'm starting from the back. And they all said, yeah, that's okay. We've seen you do this before. We're not worried. You'll find your way to the front. Well, here he is. He started back 16 spots, but he started back in 24th spot. Now here he is up in P8 and marching his way through the field. Speaking of marching, Bradley Holly and Elliott White are trying to march up to the 2 truck here. And I want to come back to a topic about 35 topics ago. Ron, when I said that was a truck after the Solo Cups, I was thinking like Toby Keith, Red Solo Cup. I forgot those other cups are called Solo Cups. I mean, I know there's a brand. I just thought, I just think of the Red Solo Cup. Well, I can't sing it for obvious reason. 1, I can't sing, and 2, copyrights.
Yeah, so the Solo Cup lore continues here on this broadcast, but I was a little bit worried when we jumped.
It's not just a cup; it's my friend.
The cup is my friend. I put googly eyes on him. It's like a pet rock, but a pet cup. So I was a little bit worried when we jumped to this battle here with Steve Baker, Bradley Holly, and Elliott White, because White and Holly were kind of converging in on one another. Started to see a little bit of contact go on there, but now it's broken up. Now White having to worry about Ted Lowendick right in tow. You can see him in that Interstate Batteries throwback scheme. A sponsor that incidentally has been involved in racing far-reaching away just from the NASCAR side of things. Done stuff in the NHRA. They also did stuff in IndyCar many moons ago. Didn't know this. Jeff Andretti had an Interstate Batteries IndyCar enter the 1993 Indy 500 as the 1-3 car. Ted Lowendick in the 13, jumping his way up into 6 as Elliott White still dropping down with those tires worn down to the canvas.
Lots of great racing happening here across the track. Well, I think it's about time, as we're approaching now the less than 30-minute mark, to do our Miracle Flow team update. So we'll start at the driver who we find first. That is Bradley Holly. Of course, we talked about this being the Sweetheart Solo Cup truck. Brad's had some great runs tonight. Currently finds himself up in the top 5 in this 184 machine. Brad, a dominant driver who's found his way to the front many times and has had many great battles, doing pretty well for himself here tonight. We'll go back to P10. You'll find the Ricky Craven DuPont truck we talked about earlier. That's Jeff Evans in the 51, and a much different look than the typical magenta you'd see Jeff Evans in. Jeff's running pretty solid. Remember, this restart, he was up there at the front, but those old tires are giving him some grief this evening. We'll go back down through the field to find our next Miracle Flow driver, and that I believe to be Nicholas Schwartz in that old Coors Light throwback. The Sterling Marlin paint scheme is how it was described to me in the notes I was given pre-race. The Silver Bullet, as we called it. Nick's had a tough season in PSR. Has had some moments of great results, but not able always to put those results to great use when the race is over. So he's hoping to turn around his season here in the second half. And last but not least, we find him on track would be Doug Evans. And I don't think we have a Doug. I had Doug as listed in my throwback paints. He was going to run a 1980s Darrell Waltrip number 11 Mountain Dew. But it appears like Doug Evans not on the track this evening to represent that paint. Well, Miracle Flow is more than hair care. It is built for the bold. Founded in Rochester, New York back in 2015, Miracle Flow was created to elevate both your look and your lifestyle. Made in the USA and crafted for real performance. It's trusted by those who show up ready, whether it's a game night with the boys or a night out on the town. No shortcuts, no gimmicks, just results. Miracle Flow, because your flow isn't just lifestyle, it's a statement. Well, I think many statements are being made here tonight, Ron, at Darlington. Many drivers are starting to kind of rise to the top who are comfortable with the track. Bradley Holly being one of them here, who's now up 18 spots on the evening. He was not allowed to qualify, has climbed his way through the field, and he would love to claim a victory here at the track. Too tough to tame.
Yeah, taming this track is pretty much the racing equivalent of slaying the beasts. So we'll have to see as we get into the final 26.5 minutes of tonight's action, whether or not everyone can hang on. We still have a lot of unanswered questions. Who's going to have the quick car at the end? Who's going to have the tires as well? That's been a consistent theme throughout the night. It's Darlington. We can't say we're too surprised as taking a look at Matt Gagden. He's got the tiara on his picture there on our graphics, and Pit Vipers, or is that just like a very fancy no, that's not a VR headset.
Those are ski goggles. So Matt loves bragging. He's a ski goggles racing. And apparently, Matt's never seen a tanning bed he is a friend of, by the way. Those are some pretty pasty arms from Matt. Matt's a good friend of the broadcast. Love Matt. I know Matt's mom is watching, so hello, Mrs. Gagnon. Your son's doing well tonight, running up in P12 currently. And Matt, Matt, by the way, is pretty accomplished. He splits his time between PSR and the eNASCAR College Series run. So Matt is a fairly busy driver on most Wednesday nights.
Yeah, far from the first time I've gotten the opportunity to cover him here on Green Flag TV. Versatile driver, very quick in these trucks, and currently holding on to P12, sensing an opportunity to maybe break his way up into the top 10. Jeff Evans in that 51 car, still struggling. It's been a consistent struggle bus for him since we got this race restarted, compared to Elliott White, where it's been a bit of a parabolic in terms of how things have gone for him. It started off kind of normal, was losing out on a little bit of time, lost down that race lead, and was holding on to second for a while, and then things have just, completely fallen off a cliff. Now the 51 getting turned into the outside wall. The driver's going to scamper as they head their way down the start-finish straightaway, still wrecking. That's a 51, wow. And Dustin Bumgartner in the 16, and the caution is that with less than 25 minutes on the clock.
Well, this will put pit stops on the board, I believe, for everybody on the track, but I'm curious what happened here. We'll wait for the replay to find out. Did Evans come up? Did Bumgarner come down? Who begat what? Let's watch the race here. This is from behind Jeff Evans. There's Bumgarner going up top. Wait for the moment. And I don't know. That's darn close from that view. That might be the, like, if you needed to give a definition of 50-50 in a dictionary, Ron, that might be the photo you put in there, honestly.
Yeah, it's again another instance in which both drivers kind of contributing to that. That 16 did have a lot more room to yield out there on the top side. We'll take a look at it. Play me like a fiddle. Yeah, about 2 feet there. That's not a lot of time that he could have worked with, but the 51 as well. You know, could have left him a little bit more space. That's the classic Darlington squeeze. You know, we've got the Tropicana car out there on the racetrack, so you can get a lot of juice out of an orange. I'm not sure what sort of juice you can get out of a racetrack outside of gasoline. I'm not sure how tasty that is, as we have the drivers coming back down pit lane for what could be the final stops of the day.
I think definitely will be the final stops today for a lot of drivers. Jacob Malone leads us down pit road. Full sail pit stops on the menu right now here at Darlington. Happy you're along with us here on Green Flag TV, here for the premier sim racing Outlap Motorsports Truck Series. Trucks up and down pit road. Jacob Malone gets to have that long ride. Remember, he qualified up in P4, so he'll be the 4th pit stall. And this should be, I would suspect, Ron, 4 tires and gas for the field.
Yeah, the 4 tires are an absolute necessity. You've got to get some brand new rubber on that race car. Otherwise, I mentioned the whole thing about, you know, cats and bathtubs full of coconut oil. That's pretty much what we're going to be like. Of course, here at Green Flag TV, we do not support people who do that to their cats. That seems like a very messy cleanup and doesn't seem very good for the cat. Jacob Malone going to exit out with the race lead. Mark Kalin in P2. That 62 truck, I think that he's going to be a bit of a quiet contender as we get to the end of this race. Is taking a look at a slow motion replay to see this incident that's put us under yellow. It is almost majestic to a point where you could put some like ballet music over it, and then you see a race truck head your way into the outside wall virtually head on.
So I do want to say, I was looking at this again, and I think if I had to assign fault here, Ron, I think it's on Bumgarner. And the simple reason I think it's on Bumgarner is I think there's a racing etiquette of, do you expect this move to work? And I think when you're Dustin Bumgarner and you move up the track and you kind of squeeze yourself up there between the wall and another truck at Darlington, I don't know that you have, or that you should have, a reasonable expectation of that move sticking. And that's the only slight, maybe like 52-48 reason I say it's probably more on Bumgarner, is I just don't think that you could put your truck up there and have the expectation that's all going to work out okay and that you're not going to end up wrecked. There's Nicholas Cadena, by the way, on the webcam. But I don't know, Ron, if you feel differently, but I just think sometimes you have to be race aware. And I just think that's what was missing in that moment.
Yeah, there's a certain kind of give and take attitude that you have to have in these races, even as we get towards the end. You gotta know, okay, now's the time where I can probably jump out of the throttle, avoid an incident, not collect any damage, and just get them farther down the line, you know? It's pretty much just like, you gotta treat one of these races like you're cutting down a tree. You know, if you hack at with a chainsaw, there's a 50-50 shot of it coming down and crashing onto your house. So you gotta know how to go about it a bit more methodically than that. As the pace car is back down pit lane, the field a little bit broken up farther behind, but getting into the restart zone, Malone guns it. We're back to Green Flag Racing. Mark Kalin in the 62 truck now gonna have to feel some pressure from Bradley Holly and Robert Barney right behind. Side by side racing. Holly ripping on the high side, the solo cup looking to be the solo holder to P2, but he spins coming out of the turn. He holds on to it. How did he do that?
Wow, that's a good move by Bradley Holly. That's an incredible save. It's going to be frustrating. It's going to put him further down the field. As now you see the 26 and the 2 almost bumping doors here through the corner, but Bradley Holly keeps that thing moving, has fallen back in spots. According to my timing, scoring back to P11 on the track here. Now, does he have enough time across 20 minutes to make it up? I don't know. Watch this again. To the outside of Mark Kalin, Holly gets clear and just cuts down too far, and across the track he goes, and gets a hold of it, gets off the gas, lets the truck settle. And now you see Brett Pancari off a little bit here. Not as bad. He'll be okay. But a very exciting moment for this restart.
As he took that trip off into Timbuktu, I thought he was going to find himself in the barrier as that's a driver making wall contact right behind. A huge sideways moment there from Pancari. He's going to struggle there. That's actually, my apologies there. That's lap down there for the 99 truck right up in front. huge sideways snap there. But it got me a little bit crossed up. It'd still bring out a yellow regardless, whether on the lead lap or otherwise. It's 2x2 formation flying in through turn number 3 and 4. And right there was close as we're up at the front. Or maybe going to start to see a battle intensify with Mark Allen, who's been really aggressive throughout the night, and Jacob Malone. It's a really quick truck. These are the two that we're going to have to keep tabs on in terms of battling for the race lead, like they will do very soon.
As you Mark Kalen scrub the walls, trying to be aggressive, trying to find a run here on Malone. And Kalen does not want to give up this position. Running here just a tenth or 0.2 behind Jacob Malone, having a great run here in that truck. Another lap down. Mark having to wipe the sweat off his brow, knows he's working hard, and that's a pretty good, I think, fair assumption, Ron, is that racing at Darlington is a workout. This is not an easy track. You will, if you race here competitively not long, you will have a good workout. Cardio-wise, your arms will have a good workout. You can skip arms day at the gym tomorrow.
Yeah, when you leave Darlington, your arms are going to be weak for sure. You're going to have to hack at that steering wheel for a long, long time just to try and keep it going in a straight line, let alone going fast. Jacob Malone is still your race leader. He's been a good wheelman throughout the night, but he's got another good wheelman right in tow of Mark Allen. Those two starting to drive away from the rest of the field as the 26 scraped the fence all through 1 and 2, and now the 14 of Matt Gagnon looking to try and get a move done on him. Bradley Holly giving him a nice little push as they had their way down the backstretch into 3 and 4. The 26 truck looks like the wheels are bolted on sideways. He may be the fastest truck out there in terms of holding on to the fastest lap of the race, but right now that 26 car looks to be all but quick as here we go. Kalen cuts down to the bottom, gets that move done off through turn number 2 with a bit of help from the outside wall. Malone scraped it, and that's Kalen punching his way up into the lead once more.
That's a great job by Mark Killens. Now you see the battle for 3rd, 4th, and 5th on back. This is Richard Regan, Steve Baker, and Elliott White all back here, racing really hard for that last spot on the podium, is what I'm trying to say. But up front, yeah, you're right. It's Mark Kinley. He found his way around Jacob Malone. By the way, to keep a note on this, Ron, remember, tires are no longer a conversation. Everybody pitted together. So everyone pitted on lap 91 back through the field. So tires are not the conversation here. So now it's about driver skill. Now it's about saving tires because everyone started on equal rounds a few laps ago.
Yeah, that is a good point to raise. It's equaled the playing field quite a lot, which is a benefit for some and kind of a curse for others, would you say?
Yeah, I think it's fair to say. Yeah, if you were running a strategy where you thought maybe you had a good run going and you had a strategy in your head that you thought was an ace strategy, that's going to give you a very hard time. But a note from the YouTube chat from Doug Evans himself. Doug is in, I'm going to say this wrong, Punta Cana, watching the race. He will run that DW Mountain Dew car next week at Talladega. Punta Cana, that's got to be how you say that, right? I should ask Google first.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't ask me. I am the master of butchering name pronunciations. Now, it makes sense. My grandfather was a butcher, just of, actual, meats. I'm just a butcher of name pronunciations. So, hey, some things change and others stay the same. 15 and a half minutes left on the clock. Mark Allen is still your race leader. Jacob Malone in P2 with Richard Regan rounding out the top 3. These battles sprinkled throughout the field are still getting intense. Evan Williams now down the pit lane as Steve Baker and Elliott White, they're going to start to battle out for P4 here soon, as still keep a note of Robert Barney in that car that's been quite squirrely throughout this portion of the race. Equal tires notwithstanding, that car looks flat out evil.
Yeah, Punta Cana, by the way, according to me, when I've done some research, Punta Cana is in the Dominican Republic. It's known for this 32-kilometer stretch of beaches and clear waters. So I'd say, listen, if I had a choice of beaches and clear waters or racing in Darlington, I think Doug Evans made the right call. That's a 10 out of 10 choice for me.
And one thing that separates that, I was going to make a joke about New Jersey, but I'm going to hold off on it.
There's no clear water in New Jersey. Don't worry about that. That's not even that's you guys got the Hudson River. There's no clean water in New Jersey.
Oh, they also have the Delaware River between it and Philly, but there will be some people in New Jersey that wonder where the dirt is, as that was a big bit of wall contact.
Yeah.
They're still dropping down.
Nicholas Gadina already laps down. Just really is kind of a kick-wise down, if you will. Having a rough night here. But we are now down to the 14-minute mark of this race. And remember, we started with 75 minutes on the clock. Mark Kalen's now just ahead by a quarter of a second on your screen of Jacob Malone. They've got Richard Regan Jr. up 21 spots behind them. And Ron, I know you're new to the series, but I promise you, if these guys blink, if they slip, if they slide, if they let up at all, Richard Regan is going to be there. Richard has won many races in the Premier Sim Racing Outlap Motorsports Truck Series, and it is not hard to imagine him putting yet another win sticker on that truck tonight. So let's keep an eye on it and see what happens. But Rich is right there. Remember, he did not qualify, has not raced in a month. He doubted himself, but I think he was the only person doubting himself pre-race.
So we're 3.5 minutes away from it, but I want to think about how the final 10 minutes are going to go for these top three. For Richard Regan Jr. in P3 in that number 56 truck, he's going to have a fantastic front row seat to what's probably going to be a very hard-fought fight between Mark Kalen, who's been rather aggressive, I think is probably the word that I would use. I don't mean that as an insult. He's been thunderous throughout this race, put on some brilliant action, given us a lot of exciting moments to discuss thus far. And Jacob Malone, who's been quick as well, but he's going to get a view of those two going side by side as we get to the end of this race with tires that are falling off and cars that aren't handling nearly as well as they would probably have in mind. Side note, that's a swap of spots. Elliott White jumping in front of Steve Baker in that battle for fourth. Contact going on right behind. That's Barney going to get sent off into the inside wall, and Nicholas Schwartz involved in that too. They keep it rolling. We remain green, but this is going to be tricky with Glow and Dick catching up there in the number 13.
That's Bradley Holly, by the way, and Robert Barney. That's the Solo Cup car and the 26 truck. I say trucks, not cars. Well, that's what's going to happen here. Holly's weapon is tapped to 26. And they're going to slide inside. So all things considered, not the worst it could have been, Ron. They both got it kind of gathered up and kept moving. But for Bradley Holly, that's the second time since this last restart where he's been slow on the bottom of the track.
Yeah, still been quite skittish and not the way that he wanted his race to go. Clearly, turn 3 and 4 not being a spot to kindle joy and brings them good memories tonight as the battle for 10th looks again intense with Barney, Lowendick, Baumgartner, and Bradley Holly. So the chickens are coming home to roost at the moment for Barney in that number 26 truck. This may get feisty as we get into the final 11.5 minutes of this race, seeing racing action and battles so spicy. It reminds me of the time that I've been to a jalapeno and got my tongue stuck to an ice pack. Quarter of a second is a gap now between Kalen and Malone, with a further quarter second back there to third. Was going to raise this, talking about Richard Regan Jr. in P3. What's probably going to go down is he's going to have a front row seat to that battle, and he's going to be able to slip back in, have that front row seat to it, but know when to pounce, know when to get involved into that bare knuckle fist fight once it starts to get ugly, which I think it could get here soon, especially some lap traffic choking those racers up.
It's both live shots, no replay here, by the way. This is the battle for first and second. Now, the top of your screen, as my producer flips those around, I just about said it. And then at the bottom of your screen, that's Ted Lowendick and others. That's a battle back for P10, 11, and 12, I do believe, on the bottom of your screen. So remember, Malone gave up this lead about 10 laps ago now. A lap truck's in the way. Wow, Jacob Malone sent it in there and made that work. That lapped truck played a factor, and look at this now. Richard Regan's up there. Many a trucks are in the way.
I don't like it whenever they go 3 wide, even down the backstretch when they have the time to fan out and spread out. That's still quite ugly. Look at that. 2 cars in one shot. That was brilliant there from the 11 of Malone.
Hunter, I think he uses like the moving chicane or the moving pick to use the rolling pick. If you use your basketball terms for college basketball tournament season, I don't think we're allowed to say the double M word for copyright reasons. But yeah.
If it works, it works. Yeah, let's ride on board and see this. There's that car slow. Neum indeed is a call from our producer. That was brilliant stuff. Jacob Malone may very well have been able to, I'm not going to say seal the deal in this race, but certainly made it a heck of a lot easier as we got to the final 9.5 minutes. Mark Kalen's half a second back. Richard Regan Jr. has been bounced out of the battles. Now Elliott White is looking to make a charge as we get to the end of this race. That 10 truck, you know, we can't discount him as we get to the end of this race. It's looking like he may be able to peak at the right time as a 56 dropping down at the wrong time. Steve Baker now looking to get a move done on him to send that 56 truck back down to 5th.
Well, to it, Ron, this is not the only amazing race happening on Green Flag TV right now. Look at this live look-in. This is the Beer League finale race. They're racing the MX-5s. They're at the brand new St. Petersburg track that just came out in iRacing last week. This is their finale race tonight. Nolan Rimple's over there with Chris Harrington. And if you want to watch that race, you can. As soon as this YouTube feed ends with PSR, YouTube is going to feed you over there automatically to the Beer League finale. But look at this here. That's a long straightaway for some MX-5 cars right there. I suspect you'll get a bit of a draft down that straight before you come into those first corners here. But that's an amazing race. It's just now getting started. They're in their heat. They're not even in their main race. Oh, there's a big wreck. I've seen that spot be a wreck in IndyCar before, so that looks familiar.
Yeah, what's not known about St. Pete, going back to the racing history discussion, despite the fact that it hosted its first ever IndyCar race, and well, technically, it hosted its first ever American Open Wheel race in 2003 when Champ Car ran there. They ended up hosting their first IndyCar race, what is now IndyCar, in 2005. They used to race there way back in the 80s, but not exactly on the airport and not on the configuration that they race on today. Getting back to the racing here at Darlington, a different kind of racing history here in the U.S. Jacob Malone looking to try and seal the deal, but I said that he may have been out of the woodwork. I was going to say he was out of the woodwork for the rest of the race, but I had to amend that statement because things can change, and I think they have changed. Kalen now only 0.3 seconds off the back of Malone. 3.5 tenths is the margin. It continues to fluctuate, but Kalen may be trying to mount a charge as Elliott White is looking to mount a charge on the both of them.
Yep. By the way, you mentioned the phrase different kind of racing. Look at the schedule upcoming here on Green Flag TV. Tomorrow night, we have a doubleheader. The Collegiate iRacing League, their form of the college run, is at Worldwide Technology Raceway with the Indy cars. Meanwhile, the Speed Cup Series will be here. Nolan Rimple will be here at Darlington Raceway tomorrow night, as there was a Malone up on the wall. On Saturday, it's a triple header on the channel. The VSCA has their 2.4-hour race at Laguna Seca. Ron Mons, my partner tonight, will be on the call with Nolan Rimple. I will be with some others over at Spa for the FTR debut. That's the GT3, GT4 talked about earlier. And then Saturday night, the Sim Racing Association goes to Bristol Motor Speedway in the trucks. On Sunday, it's also a doubleheader. Dover Motor Speedway is on the schedule for the trucks, and then we'll wrap up that new IMSA style league, the Motor City Racing. They'll be at the 24-hour layout for Le Mans, and we'll have some IMSA racing action. So Ron, all throughout the weekend, look at that. I mean, there's probably 4 or 5 different types of racing. So no matter what type of racing you love, there's something for you on Green Flag TV.
Yeah, and I'll be on the call for both that VSCA race at Laguna Seca as well as the Motor City action from Le Mans a little bit later on in the weekend. So, folks, I'll be tuning into this broadcast. If you haven't invested in noise-canceling headphones, I'd suggest that right now before I end up on the air for those 2 shows. Battling up in the top 3, though, getting feisty as we get into the final 5.5 minutes of this race. Malone, Kalen, and White, all of them kind of converging on each other at different paces. Malone has been your pace setter. Kalen behind has been fluctuating, but Elliott White has been on a stormer of a charge. I think he has a real good shot here at the end.
Yeah, I think there's still probably 4 or 5 drivers with a shot here. I mean, obviously Malone, Kalen, and White up here. I'm still not counting out Richard Regan Jr. I've seen him do amazing things with that race car. So I think there's still 4 trucks. Maybe Steve Baker, the multi-time winner. You know, could he pull out some kind of wild finish here? Now, the stories to start to tell, Ron, we're getting close to what my partner Evan Posocco calls the point of no return. We're getting close to a point here where if that pesky caution flag comes out, we may not get this race started again. So now, right now, if you are Mark Kalen up in P2, if you are Elliott White in P3, you have to make your move. You have to pounce right now, because if a caution comes out, you may not get a second chance. There's no second chance in first impression, so to speak.
And I will say something slightly controversial. I prefer that risk instead of the risk of any sort of shenanigans breaking out in an overtime. I like this format here in this series. I think it's really cool. It's put on some good racing thus far here tonight. And as we approach the crescendo, everybody feeling that pressure, maybe feeling a little bit nervous behind the wheel, which is not ideal when your car is starting to drive a little bit more skittish than it was a matter of just about 10 to 15 minutes ago when these racers were on somewhat fresher tires. Malone still holding on to a 0.3 of a second margin. It hasn't been cut down too much by Mark Kalin, and I think one racer who knows that more than anyone is Elliott White. Starting to see that 62 car get a 62 truck get a bit more sideways, and starting to see that number 11 truck, number 10 truck, not getting the numbers right here, get a bit more froggy. I'm starting to see that car kind of poke at, not go for the moves just yet. It's passive aggression that we're seeing right now. He's not hacking at it with a chainsaw just yet, but he's certainly looking to get that thing started soon. You can see him getting a bit more experimental with the lines, strategizing at the moment behind the wheel of that car.
Yeah, by the way, good news for your leaner. Look up ahead of that blue truck. That's your leaner. That's Jacob Malone in that SpongeBob paint. Look up ahead. It's a while before you see your next piece of lap traffic. Because now here's a pass for P2. Malone's to the inside of, or sorry, now Elliott White's to the inside of Mark Kalin. And this pass will be contentious as we come down the straightaway here. But that's the second piece of good news for Malone. But that first piece of good news, unlike what happened to Mark Kalin about 10 minutes ago, there's no lap traffic in the way right now, Ron. There's no one to potentially be that moving pick, that rolling chicane, that roadblock, whatever you want to call it here. And I think right now, I think Kalen's falling back and White's having a hard time dealing with it, and that's just allowing Jacob Malone to slowly increase that lead.
And Malone going to enjoy the sight of these two going side by side right behind him. That gap growing out now to about a half a second as they continue to chase each other's tails into turn one. There's the caution. That's the 184 around, and that may do it here tonight. Jacob Malone may catch the lucky break. I think it may have been his either way, considering those two were going side by side behind him. But the yellow ad and 2 minutes left to go on the clock, that could do it.
Yeah, I think so. There's no way. PSR admins will try to get this to a quick restart. I just don't see how that happens. But watch this here. Brad just got a bonk or a boop or a bap or just a flat out something from behind. And,
it's a falling anvil.
Yeah, so for Bradley Holly, this has been I don't want to call it stages because this is not stage racing. But watch this again here from behind Bradley Holly. Watch what's going to happen in the corner here. Just a little bit of a nudge there, and around he goes. But for Bradley Holly, ever since this last restart, Ron, remember, this is the third time he's been sideways since that last restart.
Yeah, it's not been a good run of things, has it? It really has not been a good way to end this race for him. Gonna end it farther behind, end it sideways in terms of the green flag running sideways, slideways around this racetrack into the final minute on the clock. And Mark Kalin running alongside Jacob Malone potentially as an early congratulations. It's been a great race for the 11. It's been a good drive for him. He's been able to withstand the pressure, able to keep it up at the front as they head their way across the line, I believe, unless there's a very quick run. We'll keep an eye on the lights on that pace car to see
one to go,
whether
but it doesn't
or not.
matter.
Yeah, it's not going to matter. It may be a very quick run. Yeah, no lights out on the pace car, so this will do it in this race. Jacob Malone set to inherit the victory, but it was an earned win at that. He withstood a ton of pressure.
Yeah, a great amount of pressure. I mean, had a good run to up 3 spots. Remember, qualified very well, qualified 4th. So had a solid run here this evening, as did Mark Kalin, also up 3 spots on the night. So he had a great, man, that move of the night is going to be that pass where he just sort of dove it in there around, I believe that was Nick Hunter, that lapped car, and sort of went for it. And that was a make or break move, literally, Ron, because had he missed that move, he probably would have broke the truck. That would have been a very bad ending had he missed that move.
Yeah, it certainly would have been. That would have been a kicker, real tough as we do have, continuing racing here in this series, so won't lie in his head too much, but small little mistakes like that turning into big consequences can lay on the memory as we get into the second half of this season. But the checkered flag, the yellow and checkers, will be displayed. Jacob Malone is going to be your race winner tonight here at Darlington. It's a great drive. It was a brilliant race for him in that number 11 truck. He'll seal the deal. Mark Kalin is going to be right behind in P2 as are we running them around again? I mean, we do have the lights out on the
truck. I think Barney is just having fun now. Yeah, we're seeing white flag in the tower. Yeah, I think this is just another parade lap, just to, I don't know why, but yep. Yeah, run it around. Don't stop here. They're I don't know. This timing and scoring system is a little wonky, but yep. So Malone, by the way, a new driver this year in PSR, and only his, still only a few races into the season. He's already coming here and we get now to put a winner sticker under his profile and on his resume of being a winner in the Premier Sim Racing Outlap Motorsports Truck Series. A great win here for Jacob Malone. Here's another view of what happened. That pass, by the way, I think that was Nick Hunter. That's the grinds look. That is Nick Hunter. Okay, just want to make sure that was Nick Hunter with all the grinds. I want to double check my thoughts here, but we'll just try it one more time. There it is. There's the checkered flag. For the first time this season, Ron called it a lap early, like the old Mark Martin pitting. But this time I can confirm Jacob Malone is a winner at Darlington.
Yeah, a brilliant drive. Would have been the same result either way, but slightly delayed. He's going to try and give us some small little wiggles. Brief little burnout here. What can you do under yellow? But what a drive from Malone to seal the deal.
Yeah, we'll see what kind of burnout he does here. And that's one of the things we love to see. Some of the drivers love to see how long they can burn the burnout for. I will say now, as we begin to enter into the Regan Bogue Motorsports post-race show, that we're going to watch. So we're going to look at some results and watch the burnout in some order here. I'm being told in my ears. Let's see what's going to happen. He's already starting to kind of wiggle that truck around here. So we'll watch the burnout and see what he does. Flips the car around, and victory for SpongeBob and Patrick in an iconic NASCAR racetrack. That's some good burnouts. Some good donuts, I guess.
Yeah, so merger with the lady in black and bikini bottom. I'm not sure that it's ever been seen before in captivity, but here we are. Great drive from him in that 11 truck. I like the numbering as well. I think that's an old like Red Horse Racing, sort of like the number inside the black box there.
Yep. Great look there for the 11. Well, as we begin to enter into the Regan Bogue Motorsports post-race show, we'll watch the results here. We'll start with Jacob Malone, your winner, and he leads by over 0.7 of a second of Mark Kalin. These times are going to be a little wonky because of the caution being out. Elliott White, Richard Regan Jr., and Steve Baker is in your top 5. Then it's Gagnon, Lane, Pancari, Barney, and Lowendick in your top 10.
Yeah, then looking from there, Thomas Sink will be classed in 11th. Dustin Bumgartner in P12. Nicholas Schwartz will be in 13th place. Bradley Holly will be in 14th. Jeff Evans in P15 from Brandon Walter in 16th. Nicholas Acosta in 17th place. James Morgan in 18th. Zach Burns in P19 with Jim Westerfield completing your top 20. Should be noted, Brandon Walter was the last car to finish this race on the lead lap.
Yeah, let's see here. 5 or more laps down. Mike Toomers back in 21st with Nicholas Gadina, Zach Williams, Nick Hunter, and Evan Williams running at your top 25. And then trucks with a bad night did not finish. Justin Rodden, Tyler Manning, Jamie Graham, Reese Bogue, and Nick Beyer through your top 30. We'll round it out here. Jacob Dunn, Brett Adams, Alexi Vigeant, Stacy Hunter, and then Doyle Lawrence did not, I believe, take a lap here tonight in that 35 truck field. Let's look top to bottom at tonight's unofficial results. Well, now I can officially say, as we begin to enter into the Regan Bogue Motorsports post-race show, speed is just the starting point, but success is built through discipline, focus, and development. At Regan Bogue Motorsports, their iRacing coaching is built to develop winners through one-on-one coaching. Their focus is on the fundamentals that turn fast drivers into champions. Be a smart racecraft, disciplined decision-making, and pressure-proof performance. This is not about quick fixes. It's about building a foundation for lasting success. Regan Bogue Motorsports, developed for wins, built for championship. Well, as we begin now to wrap up the race and look ahead, let's go ahead and get into our interview and see who is available. And we'll start with the driver who's brand new to Premier Sim Racing, and he might be built for a championship. Jacob Malone, only your fourth or fifth race in, and you're a winner. How does that feel?
Third race actually.
There you go, third race.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that was an awesome race. Everyone was so much fun. It was the new package here. It was so much fun. Little bit of aero grief in the rear, but that was a blast to drive and race against and race with.
So that move you made with about, I think, let's say roughly 10 minutes to go, maybe a little longer, where you dove to the inside of Nick Hunter. What was the thought process? What was going through your mind as you made that pass?
Well, I noticed the lap car was a little wonky on entry. I didn't know where he was going to go, and I was like, might as well just go the opposite of what leader was doing, and I did that. I got through and kind of pulled away, and then I smacked the wall while managing tires, and I had to kind of actually play defense. So I just made my life harder for myself, but other than that, that was just straight prediction and kind of using a pick.
Well, next week we go from one iconic NASCAR racetrack to another. Next week we go to this big super speedway in Talladega. What's your outlook for that race?
Not flip. I think that's the goal. I don't have the greatest luck at super speedways. Yeah, I can go win, but I also can get in a wreck, and I think the main goal for everyone is just to finish successfully.
All right, well, listen, well, again, congratulations. 3 races, 1 win. That's some amazing stats. Anyone you want to give a shout out to or say hello to?
Anyone in the stream who was rooting for me, if there's any. You guys for putting on the broadcast, and the people who run this league, they've been so kind to me. I've said this every time, like last race when I got interviewed. They've been the kindest ever to me, helping me get situated and get in. So, and of course the clean racing. So it's a very respectful league. If you guys didn't know already, anyone watching wanting to join, everyone in here is amazing from what I can tell so far. So I just want to point that out there.
Awesome. Well, go celebrate your win at one of the toughest NASCAR tracks in the schedule, and we will see you in 7 days.
Thank you. Have a good one.
You as well. That is Jacob Malone coming home first and celebrating his win. Now I believe that Ron Mons has caught up with second place finisher in Mark Kalin, and I think he's ready to talk with Ron.
Yeah, Mark Kalin joining us here in the broadcast booth. Welcome in, man. P2 for you when it's all said and done at Darlington. How was it out there?
It wasn't P1.
P2.
Sadly, I feel a little bit robbed. Man, I feel like I really could have held off Jacob there coming to the green or the checkered flag if not for that lap traffic getting in the way. But yeah, I mean, really strong effort for the number 62 Lotus Dynamics Ford. Had really strong pace all race long and was up front all race, and yeah, just really in a position to win it the entire time, and just did a really good job of managing the tires, and just really bummed it wasn't P1.
Yeah, it was certainly a good drive for you throughout the night, though, tackling this racetrack with a lot of ease. It looked like that number 62 truck looked to be on rails throughout it. How did you enjoy running around here? You know, Darlington's one of those racetracks where it can be very easy to hate it, but also very easy to absolutely fall in love with it.
Well, it is a extremely fun track once you get the hang of it. It takes a long time to do so. As Derrick would say, this type of track fits my driver mentality, or it's a more Kalin track. It is a great track for hitting walls, and I did that a few times tonight, but luckily got no damage from it, so kept on trucking and drove it all the way up to P2.
Yeah, still a good drive for you when it's all said and done tonight. Want to ask you about the next race of the series as we bear up for another historic track, Talladega, in 1 week's time. What are your thoughts heading there?
Hey, I love plate racing just as well as short tracks or egg-shaped tracks. So, yeah, looking forward to Talladega. Brings a new set of challenges, new set of opportunities, and just going to keep trying to stay optimistic and keep this string of top 5 runs going for as long as possible.
Yeah, and hoping that you can make it through that race, first off with a good result, and secondly with a clean race car. But we'll let you give any thank yous or shout outs before we let you go and celebrate the P2, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to give a shout out to my wife and my parents and sister and her family and everybody who supports and tunes in for the sim racing addiction that I have. I want to give a big shout out to Lotus Dynamic Designs for sponsoring the truck. They've been on my truck for a couple of years, and if you need a custom light box, pretty much of anything designed, give him a shout at Sean Peter on Facebook. I want to give a shout out to Green Flag TV staff members, always doing an excellent job on the broadcast. I always enjoy watching them back the next day. And then last but not least, excuse me, been a long race. All the admins at the PSR that put on the great league that we have here.
Yeah, well, thank you for the kind words there. It's my treat to be here in the booth for the very first time here in this series. It was an absolutely awesome race, and happy to see you run well on it, Mark. Thank you for joining us in the booth, and we'll see you next time out at Talladega.
Thank you. Y'all have a good one.
You as well. That right there was Mark Kalin, our P2 finisher at the end of this race, and Derrick, will pass the mic back off to you.
And we'll take a second and talk with a driver who's been on a roll this year in Premier Sim Racing. That's Elliott White. Elliott led some laps, had some good runs here at Darlington. How did that feel down there?
Yeah, it felt good. I mean, the truck didn't really feel very good, but I mean, that was the setup for everyone. So it was fun to drive. Pace was good. I honestly feel like I might have had the best pace in the field, but the caution kind of came out at a unfortunate timing. But it was still kind of a sloppy race on my end in terms of racecraft, which kind of frustrated me a little bit. So still need to work on that.
Well, next week we go to a super speedway, Talladega super speedway to be exact. Are you hopeful about that race? Do you enjoy super speedway racing? What's your thoughts as we prepare for that?
It's kind of different now since the draft package has changed, and I haven't done the only race I've done on the new draft package was Daytona earlier this year. So I guess I'm kind of looking forward to it, but at the same time, I don't feel like having to learn the draft package. I almost would have just preferred knowing how it felt a few years ago, but I still enjoy super speedway racing, so it'll be fun.
Well, listen, so I have to ask, you came out in the Winter Series, you dominated in the cross cars, you had a great run in some of the other cars we ran towards the end, the IndyCar and whatnot. You've dominated the truck, so it really does pose the question, is there something Elliott White can't drive?
Well,
is there a car you don't feel like you're good at? That maybe
I don't do a lot of high downforce, especially single-seater high downforce cars, the formula stuff.
So if you want to beat Elliott White, challenge him to like an LMP2 race is what I'm hearing.
I mean, I enjoy the car, but yeah, no, I'm not that great in it. I haven't done enough, that's for sure. But I mean, I haven't even gotten. You say I dominated, but man, I haven't been getting the results that I feel like I should be getting. I just can't put a race together.
Maybe like a radical car, an LMP3, the LMP1s. Any of these things sound like I could, maybe these are the ones.
I mean, LMP1, LMP2 might be okay. I mean, at least I've driven them. I think if like a super formula, something like that, F4, I probably am not going to be the best at because I don't drive that at all.
Fair enough. Listen, it's always a pleasure watching you race. Anyone you want to give a shout out to or say hello to?
Yeah, for sure. The guys at Solpec and our sponsors, Abruzzi, Gosworth, appreciate them. And Jeff Evans for the paint scheme, fire paint scheme, as always. And you guys for the broadcast. Thank you.
All right, buddy. Well, thanks for your time. We'll see you next week at Talladega.
Thank you, guys. See you.
That is Elliott White coming home P3. And that will wrap up our interview portion of this evening. Well, Ron, in a couple words, if you could summarize tonight's race at Darlington, what comes to mind?
Well, the lady in black was clearly too tough to tame. Hey, I snuck the both of them in one sentence. No, this track was absolutely fantastic. Put on some great racing and a thriller of a finish as well. That move from your winner to grab that race lead in the dying breaths of this race was ballsy. There's really no other way to put it. Darlington never disappoints in terms of the actions. It doesn't matter what kind of cars run around here. It's always going to be a good one. But Talladega, that's kind of the race. We go from the track that's probably the most in these drivers' hands in terms of what can happen to the race where the least amount of things are in their hands. That is truly a, let God take the wheel racetrack. So let's see who's going to have luck on their side or who may have a falling anvil come down on their heads in 1 week's time.
Yeah, you mentioned ballsy and big moves. Both of those, I think, will be on display 1 week from tonight at Talladega. Same time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern here on Green Flag TV. By the way, stay tuned. After this stream ends, the Beer League finale at St. Pete is up on the docket. Those are the MX-5 cars racing over there at St. Petersburg. So that's going to head there right after this stream concludes. Well, if you missed any portion of this race, you can catch this race and every race from the Premier Sim Racing Outlap Motorsports series here exclusively on the Green Flag TV YouTube channel. Congrats to Jacob Malone. His third race ever in the league, his first win at Darlington. So congrats to him. I hope he has a fun time celebrating. For our producer, Dustin Ollis, for my partner, Ron Mons, I am Derrick Watson saying so long and good night from South Carolina.